And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Saturday, January 18th, 2025. And to kind of set things up as to where they will be come Sunday morning, as of this Saturday later morning, we've had one area of low pressure lift up in through the northern Bering. Along the west coast areas, this has brought in moisture in the form of some heavier snowfall, middle Yukon Valley, Nulato Hills, as well as areas, especially the central Seward Peninsula. We have a blizzard warning in effect until at least mid-afternoon this Saturday for Kotzebue, very strong easterly winds with this system. But things are going to be improving slowly as we go through this Saturday night and into Sunday. So we have the one low pressure out this way that's going to be weakening, another impulse coming northward. And as it does so, a front is going to be pushing northeastward across the southwest interior in through the Gulf. And it's along the front here in the Gulf. There's going to be a moisture feed that will provide some moderate to locally heavier precipitation along the Gulf Coast. Also some stronger winds coming in along and ahead of this front. Areas like Cape Suckling, outside of Hinchinbrook entrance, have storm force winds, including Middleton Island. And some of those winds, Turnagain arm winds, could come on in and not be as strong as the very impressive windstorm we had last weekend in the Anchorage Bowl, but certainly we are anticipating some stronger winds returning with that frontal system. And Sunday morning, we're looking at IFR conditions along the Gulf Coast, also on the slopes of the Alaska Range that face south and east because of the east-southeast flow that will try to turn southerly once the front lifts further north. Areas of the West Coast still experiencing the IFR conditions where there are lower ceilings and visibilities and still some remnant precipitation that's mainly in the form of snow here, the Western Brooks Range and east there of the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound. But Sunday afternoon, we expect more in the way of widespread IFR conditions along and south of the Alaska Range, including the Talkeetnas, Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound, the Kenai, all along the Gulf Coast up through Yakutat Bay. As we've got pretty good feed of moisture going to bring precipitation and strong gusty winds in this region. Along the west coast, still IFR conditions from areas of the Chukchi Sea coast, the southwest slopes of the Brooks Range, and then the Seward Peninsula all the way down through the YK deltas. And for Monday morning, still areas of the west under IFR conditions. We have lingering areas of lighter precipitation, but also just lower ceilings. And then the Alaska Range areas, especially south-southeast across the Talkeetnas and in through the Copper River Basin, eastern Kenai, up there, say, like Turnagain Pass and around Prince William Sound, extending out along the outer shoreline there of the Panhandle. That will be pushing eastward by Monday afternoon and into Tuesday. And we find still areas of IFR along the Alaska Range, as well as areas of the interior from the southeast slopes here of the central and eastern Brooks Range, all the way down through the upper middle Yukon Valley and into areas of the southwest, including locations along the Kuskokwim River and up into the lower Yukon Delta, and then also the far west here portion of the Brooks Range as you get up inland from Kivalina, Red Dog Mine areas. So on Sunday, we are looking at Anatuvik Pass to be VFR becoming MVFR. Same thing, Adigan Pass there in the east central portion of the Brooks Range, VFR early becoming MVFR. As we drop down along the Alaska Range, IFR at Lake Clark and Merrill, as well as Rainy Pass, up through Windy Pass, Isabel Pass, all IFR. There will be low ceilings, some precipitation along with some gusty winds. Mentasta Pass should hold on to VFR conditions, but you fly south of there, you're going to run into pretty quickly IFR conditions there across the Copper River Basin. Tanita Pass will go from MVFR to IFR on Sunday, and Portage Pass stuck in the IFR conditions again, along with some strong gusty winds coming in there from the east-southeast initially as that frontal boundary pushes up against the Gulf Coast. And then there in the far northern Panhandle, Chilkoot and White will be MVFR during the day on Sunday. Looking at the surface freezing line, we've had temperatures early Sunday morning could be at or above freezing over the southwest portion of the mainland and the southwest coast there of Bristol and Kuskokwim Bays along the Alaska Peninsula. Coming up into Cook Inlet, and then up along the northern Gulf Coast and into the inner channels of the Panhandle. Freezing levels aloft have come up. We have another area of low pressure lifting north-northeastward toward the southwest mainland. It's the front here that's going to be pushing northward. So we find freezing levels south of that front rising to 6,000 feet across the Gulf, and then at and above 8,000 feet once you get well south and southwest of Haida Gwaii, and also a rise in the freezing levels aloft from the old front that came in early in the weekend. Finally, the trough remnants up there along the Beaufort Sea coast at or just above 4,000 feet. And for potential for moderate icing exists across the Gulf, 6,000 and 8,000 feet, extending up, going up the Susitna Valley into Talkeetna Mountains, and then back to the west we have above 4,000 feet an area there, the lower Yukon. And then also up here, areas of the Chukchi Sea coast coming into Kotzebue Sound, above 3,000 feet, the potential for some moderate icing within the precipitation-bearing clouds in that area. And then another hint of a frontal system coming up with the next low-pressure system above 4,000 feet across the central and western Aleutians. At 30,000 feet jet stream level, we find there is a pretty pronounced ridge that goes up into northwest Canada and the Yukon, then cuts down across the southern Panhandle and Haida Gwaii. And on the backside of that ridge, we have southwest flow coming up into the Gulf to the Alaska range on the order of 100 to 110 knots. That's the strongest winds, but a pretty broad area of strong winds at 30,000 feet, at least 80 miles per hour plus. Now, if we take it down to 9,000 feet, 700 millibars, we do have some stronger winds over the eastern half of the Alaska range, the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains, the coastal mountains around Valdez. This area here at 9,000 feet, obviously, snow will be falling, and also just a lot of turbulence along the peaks of these mountains. A pretty good feed of moisture coming up in here along the northern, northeastern Gulf Coast. And we still have winds out southwest to southerly here along the west side of the state, 35 to 45 knots. If we bring it down to 3,000 feet, there are some strong winds here along the northern Gulf Coast, pulling back toward Prince William Sound, turning an arm locally as high as 60, 65 knots as that front lifts north. And so within this region, we expect turbulence and low-level wind shear because of the frontal boundary. So there'll be some potential for some low-level wind shear along this front from southwest interior and then down here across south central into the northern Gulf Coast. Hints of the next low circulation around that. We do have some stronger winds brushing the Aleutians at 3,000 feet that are out of the east to northeast at about 35 to 45 knots. And taking a look at the turbulence threat here on Sunday, by far the greatest threat for severe turbulence will be eastern Kenai, including like Turnagain Pass, Turnagain Arm into parts of Prince William Sound, outside of Hinchinbrook entrance down to Middleton Island, Cape Suckling, this area here. There could be some severe turbulence and low-level wind shear, surface to 6,000 feet. As we go up into the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains back toward the Alaska range, surface to 10,000 feet along those ridge lines. We're going to likely have turbulence there, moderate turbulence, and then a broad area of the western mainland, including central, western Brooks Range south, areas of Kotzebue Sound, the Seward Peninsula, eastern half of Norton Sound in through the middle Yukon Valley, all the way down to Bristol Bay, the northern portion of the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, including the entrance of Cook Inlet. All of these areas will be looking at the potential for moderate turbulence, surface to 4,000 feet, and there certainly could be some low-level wind shear where that frontal boundary straps across this area of the southwest mainland and the Alaska range as we go through Sunday.